morning. And for that, James is here in the studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcus. So we'll start with the Israeli press this morning. Of course, the big news is the assault on that flotilla of ships, which was aiming to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. We'll have a look first at the Jerusalem Post, quite a centre-to-centre right-leaning paper. From now on, it gets harder, says Gil Hoffman, one of their columnists. He's very critical of the attacks in the foreign press, saying that a lot of the video footage which showed that perhaps Israeli soldiers were acting in legitimate self-defence came out too late, and that the press immediately pounced on Israel, assuming that the soldiers were acting incorrectly. He says even if the IDF was absolutely right to board the ship where it did and to open fire when it did, and Israel was 100% blameless, it does not matter because perceptions are more important than reality. So obviously there's somebody who's extremely one-sided in his point of view and very much defending the army's response.
Now, the top line of this article, it really says it all, doesn't it? Israel is up against the wall once again.
Exactly. But what he's saying really is a lot of it is about perception, not necessarily about reality. Now, if we move to another article in the Jerusalem Post, questions abound over planning of sea-op. This is a quite critical, in fact, of the Israeli Defence Forces. It says that the soldiers, while the soldiers themselves were not at fault, video footage seems to show that they were defending themselves. What about top military and political brass? They need to be questioned. There were so many alternatives. Flotilla 13, which is the name of the commando squad that boarded the boat where there were all the fatalities, are apparently experts at sabotage. Why didn't they sabotage the ships, or divert them? And so it lists out all the alternatives. One option was to use tugboats, another was to damage the ship's propellers. They could have boarded the ship quietly and discreetly. There was also a lack of intelligence regarding the so-called ambush on board. They didn't really know what was expecting them. So a lot of criticisms of the way in which the whole operation was handled by the Israeli Navy.
So not so much criticism against the fact or of the fact that these 6 boats were stopped. It's more about the fact that they were stopped in such a violent manner.
Indeed. So that's in the Jerusalem Post. If we move to Haaretz, Israel lost at sea is Bradley Burnston's take on things. He says that the Gaza blockade has become Israel's Vietnam, that we are no longer defending Israel, we are defending the siege, and the siege itself is becoming Israel's Vietnam. Most ominously, the possible massive degradation of relations with Turkey, a very important strategic ally in the region. And if we move to the Turkish paper Zaman, their main headline there translated is "The whole world takes a stand," and they have an English language website. On that they say relations will never be the same again between the two countries. One academic says that really the whole power balance in the Middle East will now shift. He's an academic at Bigley University. In Turkey, there are criticisms too in Turkey as to whether or not the flotilla should have been accompanied by Turkish naval vessels, because there were threats on the part of Israel that that there could be an attack on the flotilla. So should they have been accompanied? I suppose the whole thing there is that it was a civilian initiative, and Turkey probably didn't want to associate its own navy with the episode. L'Orient Le Jour, which is a Lebanese newspaper, Beirut ready to show solidarity with Turkey. So again, showing the regional, I suppose, backlash against this. Gulf News, based in the United Arab Emirates, Freedom attacked. It was called, of course, Freedom Flotilla, and they have the death toll at 19, which of course is incorrect. It shows the level at which there was a lot of exaggeration in the immediate aftermath of the assault.
Because of course the death toll has now been fixed at 9, according to the Israeli army at least.
Right, and there has been a lot of criticism in the Israeli press of the way in which events were somewhat exaggerated in the beginning. If we move to The Guardian, Israel accused of state terrorism after deadly assault on flotilla. That's their front page. And from blockade to bloodshed is the editorial. They say if Somali pirates had boarded 6 vessels on the high seas, killing 10 passengers, a NATO task force would be on the way. So their focus is on the fact that this was in international waters on the high seas. What do the commandos expect pro-Palestinian activists to do, asks the paper, once they boarded the ship? Invite them aboard for a cup of tea with the captain on the bridge? So again, the tactics coming under fire, and they're basically saying that the siege must end in Gaza and that it will be chipped away at bit by bit, in fact, and that Russia met the leader of Hamas in Damascus 2 weeks ago. Other European countries are going to go that way as well. And just to finish with, the New York Times is saying the same thing, that basically one of the first steps now by the Obama administration, the first order of business, maybe figuring out a way to hammer out a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, which will end the blockade of Gaza. So one thing that we can definitely conclude in all of this is that the focus on the siege and on the blockade has been magnified tenfold, 100-fold by what has happened.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, James Quidden, for talking us through the international press this morning. You're watching at France 24.